Hey YouTubers, Voice of the Composer here. Welcome back to my video series. It is Thursday afternoon. How's everybody doing out there? I'm coming to you from an undisclosed location. And I'm watching the news, looking at everything that's happening. Oh, by the way, I got my Bonnie Blue flag in the mail last week. Been flying this thing ever since. This puppy looks beautiful when it's flapping in the wind. So go out and pick up a Bonnie Blue flag. And for you BML types out there, the anarchist Antifa members, the Bonnie Blue has nothing to do with racism, although I think you're probably going to find some way to claim that it's racist, as you usually do. But no, this flag, the Bonnie Blue, goes back to an incident in 1810, known as the Republic of West Florida. Talked about this on several videos. One of my favorite stories in history. It's often forgotten, but it is an example of real independence. This flag was first raised when they were trying to declare their independence from Spanish rule. But you probably don't know that because you're too busy looting, rioting, and burning down these buildings. And I got a funny story to tell you. I was debating with people here on YouTube, saw a video about what's going on in Lincoln County, Oregon. Apparently, if you're white, you're required to wear a mask because of this COVID-19 scare. But if you're a minority, you're not required to wear one. Really? Well, nobody call that discrimination. Yeah, I think so. I think that's a form of racism, isn't it, against whites? Now, I've talked about this on another video, about how the Irish and the Germans and the Polish were treated when they came to this country. All of you out there being and bawling about how bad you have it, you have no idea what it was like in World War II. Absolutely none in Hitler's Germany. I happen to be of Irish and German descent, so I can talk about this. Yeah, and that's not because of white privilege. That's because of my heritage of being Irish and German. And I know that German citizens, not just German Jews, but German citizens were killed if they didn't get with Hitler's program. But you probably don't know that because you're too busy looting, rioting, burning down these cities. And I was debating with people on YouTube about this video. And I just, well, not really a debate. I just put in a comment. And that was, there's a way to get around this. Everyone wants to call us racist, sexist, homophobic, or what have you. Well, I got a way to get around that. Just tell people that you're TransBlack. So I want to start a TransBlack movement. That's right. You heard me correctly here on Voice of the Composer. Let's start a TransBlack movement. Now, the only reason I'm doing this is because whenever I'm checking the comments, when I'm debating with people, I may not get tons of thumbs up. I'll admit that. But this really surprised me. I had over 200 thumbs up on my comment. I was not expecting that. I was just not expecting that. I was just saying that kind of tongue in cheek. But if you really think about it, maybe we should do that. Claim that we're trans-black. Because, see, if you claim that you're trans-black, then they can't say you're racist for owning the Confederate flag, right? They can't accuse you of slavery. I've been making some comments on another site. And I mentioned, because of my Irish background, and by the way, they did portray the Irish as drunken monkeys on posters, I thought, well, maybe I should go ahead and have a night out on the town and act like a drunken monkey. Because that's how they portrayed my people, my ancestors, on posters. Maybe I should dress up like Attila the Hun and go out and eat sauerkraut, because they actually called the Germans in this country at one time, they called them barbaric. They called them kraut. Mentioned this on a video I just posted. You can no longer say the word kraut, which is short for sauerkraut, but you can no longer say that word. Now I'm saying you can no longer say that word because that's a derogatory term that was described that was used to describe the Germans that came to this country. Boy, there's a lot of things about history that these people in the BLM movement, the Antifa movement, or what have you, they don't know because they've never opened up a history book. And then you've got some guy who was on Fox News last night from, I guess, BLM in New York. He was one of their ringleaders or whatever. He says, we're going to burn it all down if that's what it takes. Well, I thought you were against people like Hitler, Stalin, Mao, or what have you. Castro. Well, guess what they did, pal? They burned down buildings and they burned books. That's what they did to create a new society. They took down anything they found offensive. They even, I believe, redid the police force. So you better be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. So, once again, I think we should start a trans-black movement. Hey, beat these people at their own game. See, whenever you have people that do this stuff, looting, rioting, they have a weakness. In the weaknesses, they don't think. They don't use their noggin. Well, any person who's been to war will tell you you can't fight a war without having a strategy, right? And you've got to think that strategy out. When I'm sitting down and working on a piece of music, it's the same thing. I just don't randomly jot down a whole bunch of notes. There's a method to what I do as a composer. And I don't think Beethoven or whoever the composer was back in the day, when they were writing their symphony or what have you, I don't think they were thinking about racism, sexism, or homophobia. They were simply trying to portray their ideas through music. And they were living in difficult times. You gotta remember back then, poor sanitation, political unrest like you wouldn't believe, worse than what we have now, believe it or not. There were no smartphones, no automobiles, no trains, no telegraph. You didn't have CD players, MP3 players. You had none of that stuff. And yet they produced some of the world's greatest art and music. Was it because of white supremacy? No, I don't think so. Because another thing you BLM type, see, I can't even say it. I'm sorry, BLM, when you say it for short, Black Lives Matter. And yes, Black Lives Matter. Well, guess what? All lives matter. All life matters. We're on this big blue ball in the sky, or rather in space. Folks, this is our home. Let's take care of it. But like I was saying, these people have no idea. They just have no idea what they're talking about. They want to burn it all down. They want to erase America's history. Well, guess what? You do that, you won't have anything to write about. You just won't have anything to write about. You have nothing left. And as the old saying goes, those who do not know their history are doomed to repeat it. So I thought I'd come on here, do a video in one take, say, let's start a TransBlack movement. And to hell with these people. They need to use their noggin. They need to open up a history book and look what happened to the Irish and the Germans and happened to the Polish and the Czechs and the Serbs and the Slavs. Need I say more? Look what happened under Hitler, Stalin, Mao, Lenin, you name it. Stalin's useful idiot? I think that's what we're seeing now. But I don't want anybody out there to get discouraged. Mentioned this on my previous video. I want you to stand up for this country because you know what? America is still a great country. And if we do have problems, well, we can fix them. But we're not going to fix them by burning buildings to the ground or looting or rioting. But, you got some guy in New York who's the ringleader of this BLM movement or whatever, which sounds like a medical condition to me. Might need to go see a doctor for that. But I bet you this guy's probably living, in his parents' basement? Or his aunt and uncle's basement? Probably has never opened a history book. Probably doesn't even know who Beethoven is. Probably doesn't know who George Washington or Thomas Jefferson is. All he knows is they owned slaves. Yeah, well, guess what? At that time, they were living under the monarch. They were living under the British crown. Whatever the king said, went. So to go against the king in those days was a very brave thing to do. That's just something you didn't do. I can't stress that enough. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope we start this TransBlack movement, because once again, you got to beat these people at their own game. That's what you got to do. Beat them at their own game. Go ahead, loot, riot, burn down a city. But you're never going to kill an idea, and you're never going to kill freedom. You want real freedom, take responsibility for yourself, bud. Stop blaming me or anybody else out there, because you know what? Slavery happened 150, 160 years ago. Well, none of us owned slaves, not that I'm aware of. I know my ancestors didn't own slaves. But my point is, let's stand up for this country. And if these people are going to try to come after you because you love this country, no matter what your skin color is, and they're going to call you the enemy. I mean, you had people that were shouting out black cops. These are African Americans in uniform that they're trying to shout down, these protesters, these anarchists. Really? And you say you're for black lives. Give me a break. We can see right through you. You can loot, you can riot, like I said, take down these statues, but you're never going to kill freedom and you're never going to kill an idea. Because guess what? I speak a thought and it lives. You should watch that Twilight episode called The Obsolete Man. He beats the state at their own game. Because all the state uses is brute force. They don't use their mind. Show people the power of the state is what they talk about in that episode. Stars Burgess Meredith. Very good episode. Go check that out. Then I saw an episode this last weekend called He's Alive, starring Dennis Hopper. Don't want to give the episode away, but he tries to start a revolution or a movement, and he meets the ghost of Hitler, and Hitler kind of guides him. And at the very end, he says something very profound. I want you to listen to this carefully. When whatever happens to him at the end, he says, this shouldn't be, because I'm all steel. Well, no man is all steel. And the state is not made up of steel, because guess what? The state is a human-created entity that wants to enslave other people. That's right. The people in the concentration camps in World War II, they were being enslaved. The Irish who were put into servitude, they were being enslaved. The power of the state. You can say whatever you want about the United States, but I would rather live here than under a dictatorship. I may have said this on a previous video, but if I had to choose between living as a slave back in 1860 or living under the Hitler regime during World War II, I think I'd much rather live as a slave back in 1860. Because you people in the BLM movement, anarchists, Antifa, you have no idea how bad it was. None. Because your perspective starts when you were born, maybe at the beginning of this century, the 21st century, maybe towards the latter part of the 20th century. That's your perspective. And the truth is, you really know nothing. Look, I'm not going to deny that there might be an occasional abuse here or there. But to say that it's epidemic in this country, and all the progress that we made passing the Civil Rights Act, the ability for you to, my case, I write music in my spare time, amateur composer, the ability to express yourself through music, through art, to even be able to go and protest. You can't do that in a dictatorship. So let's beat these people at their own game. Start a TransBlack movement. Show people that, no, we aren't racist, we aren't sexist, we aren't homophobic, and you guys are trying to latch on to a fringe group that doesn't represent 99.9% of the hardworking, decent Americans out there that love this country, and we're not going to let anything stand in the way of that. So go ahead, threaten to loot, riot, burn things down, but eventually you'll end up eating your own, because that's what happens. Truth will always win. Good will always triumph over evil. And apparently, history has taught you people in the BLM and Antifa movement has taught you nothing. Once again, I'm not addressing this to the people who have legitimate concern, who are peacefully protesting, doing this the right way, voting, becoming part of the solution rather than the problem. You're running for office or maybe becoming part of the police force. Not talking about you guys out there. Because we'll support that. I'll support that. I may not agree with you on everything, but I'll support that. But not when you infringe on other people's rights and you loot, riot, burn down buildings. Because you think that it's you think that you have the authority to do that. Well, no, you don't. You don't have the right to infringe on my rights. And we who love this country are not going to let you stand in between our love of country and seeing this country secede. We're not going to let it happen. And more people need to stand up and say, we're not afraid of these people. Like I said, you can burn down a building, but you can't kill an idea and you can't kill freedom. And you want freedom? Take responsibility. Stop blaming everybody else for your problems. Because that's the only way you're going to mature, you're going to grow, you're going to become a better person. Said it before, I'll say it again. Become part of the solution, don't become the problem. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please click that like button, subscribe, hit me up on Instagram and hashtag JasonComposes, or leave comments below. I'll catch you next time. Voice of the Composer saying peace out, and God bless this great country.